Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to start a new chapter, Displacing Indigenous People. Students, in this video, we are going to study mainly about two continents. One is America and another one is Australia. As you know, beta, in chapter number 6, that is the three orders, you have, and in the chapter, the changing cultural tradition. In this chapter, you have studied about the European history. And you had seen that there was a Christian belief that earth was static and all other things are revolving around it. Apart from that, it was also believed that there were only three continents which were there on the earth: Asia, Europe and Africa. And the other continents like the America, North America, South America as well as Australia, these were unknown to them. So they considered that before the discovery of these continents, which are known as by the term of new land. New land, which are these new land? New lands are the new discovered continents like the North America, South America and Australia. Okay, these are the new lands. So before the discovery of these new land, it was considered that there were only three continents. But after that, you know this story that the Christopher Columbus, he started his journey for India, but he reached West Indies, which is today's now as the West Indies. Why it is known as West Indies? He reached a land which he considered to be India. Indies is the name given by him. He considered it to be the Indian land. But later on, when he discovered that the culture of the people of that land was different from what he read in the account of the Marco Polo. Because Christopher Columbus started his journey after reading the travelogue of the Marco Polo. Marco Polo in his travel account mentioned about Indian continent. So, Columbus started his journey for reaching to India. But instead of that, he reached to West Indies. So, later on, he gave it name as a West Indies because Indies is the term for India, related to India, Indian land, and the land which is there in the West. India is there in the East. But all these things you can understand only by knowing about the map, by having the knowledge of the map. Where is North America, where is South America, what are the countries there in North America, South America and Central America as well as Australia, where is Ireland and where is New Zealand. You must know the location of all these things, only then you can understand what I am teaching. And for this I will share with you another video in which I describe all these things of the map. Okay. So beta, firstly I am just giving you the introduction of the chapter. So as the name suggests, displacing indigenous people. Indigenous means local people. Or you can also use the term instead of the indigenous, native people. Native means the local people of the place of these land, North America, South America, Australia. Because before these lands were discovered by the European and later on by the Asian reached these new continents, there were people who were living over these lands. And those people were said to be the local people, native people of the land. Later on, when the Europeans as well as the Asians reached these lands, they occupied much of the land area of these continents. And these native people were reduced. Means the land occupied by them keep on decreasing and the number of these indigenous people also keep on reducing. And now also you know that in America, English is the official language. Why English is the official language? Because it was occupied, the majority of the population in America now is of the European who migrated at that time to America. While the native people, the inhabitant of American inhabitant, original people of the land were very less over there. So all these histories of the America, after the discovery, how the America was discovered, after the discovery of the land, how the shape of the continent keep on changing, and how the population, the people who lived over on the land keep on changing, how other people, immigrants came there and they get settled over there, and how the laws develop over there. All this history you will study in this chapter. Therefore, this is a very interesting chapter which will give you a broad view of the thing which is going on today. You can understand the present scenario by understanding the past, by understanding the history of the land. So, study the chapter with a great interest and try to correlate the things. Okay, now we proceed. Now you understood displacing indigenous people. Why the term is given? Displacing indigenous people, indigenous local people. And displacing, who displaced those local people? They were displaced by the European. Like you know, Britishers came to India. They make India their colony. But you know, after when India get independent, it became a country. These Britishers went back to their own country. But in these land of America and Australia, they get settled over there. Okay, this is the difference. So when they get settled over there, they displaced the indigenous people. They took over the land occupied by the indigenous people. In this process, many of the indigenous people, many of the local people, native people, local, native, indigenous, all these are the terms used for the same thing. Okay, these people were displaced by these settlers, new settlers from the Europe. Okay, so that's why here the name of the chapter is given, Displacing Indigenous People. In this chapter, you will study all this story. Now, after this, I told you regarding the new land. What is new land? You know, the newly discovered continent, North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand. Where is New Zealand? When in the map you see Australia, at the side of it there is a New Zealand. Okay. West Indies. Where is West Indies? This thing also I will tell you while explaining you the map. This is North America and this is South America, and in between both these there is a Central American region, and here is the West Indies. There are various island over there, Caribbean island, all these are there, which together known as West Indies. I will explain you later in the later video all these things. Okay. Now students, initially, firstly, which European? You know, in Europe there are various countries like Spain, Portuguese, France, Britain, and France, Britain, Germany, and many other. Holland. The inhabitant of Holland are known as like England के लोग कहलाते हैं Britishers. In a similar way, the people of Holland are known as the Dutch. Okay. So from these European people, who were the first who reached to the land of America? So Spanish were the first. But you know, Christopher Columbus reached America firstly. Columbus himself was Italian, but his journey was sponsored by, because at that time the journey through a water need a lot of money. So, and that's why it was sponsored by the Spanish king. Why Spanish king sponsored the journey of these travelers, like that of the Spanish king sponsored the journey of Columbus? Because by the discovery of the new land, they get new resources. And these lands added to their country, the wealth, many other things. Okay. That's why the king sponsored the journeys. So, who were the first among these Europeans who reached the American land firstly? So, the firstly, Spanish and the Portuguese colonized the America. And but after the 17th century, when Columbus reached America, he reached 1492. Remember, beta, these things are asked in a competitive exam. Okay. After that, after the 17th century, other European countries like that of the France, Holland, the people are known as the Dutch, and the England, the people known as the Britishers, they also reached the land and they occupied their some of the land and made it their colony. So in this way, the process of colonization started. One more thing, beta, why these European countries were interested in making other countries their colony? The reason was that for the purpose of profit, for gaining more wealth. Why colonies were established? For the purpose of profit. And for gaining the profit, for what they started, firstly, they started doing the trade with these new land. They took up the things from these new lands, what is new in these land, and in return they give some other thing which is there with them. Okay, firstly they did the trade, but later on when they find that instead of doing the trade, if they occupy the land, then it will be more beneficial for the European, then they made that land their colony. In a similar way, as the Britishers came to India, they made India their colony, but later on, and they firstly did the trade with Indians, like East India Company, came here. But later on, they made it their colony by conquering the land, by defeating the Indian rulers. So now you understood why the colonies were established. Colonies were established for the purpose of profit, and for gaining the profit, firstly they did the trade, but later on they made that land their colony. Like in a similar way, various European countries like Britishers made South Asia their colony. In South Asia, South Asian countries, which are the South Asian countries? When you see the map, in Asia, in the southward, there is India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all these regions are there. Okay. America, it was also the colony. Africa, it was also the colony. In America, why the Europeans were interested in America? Because there were various mines which are there, like the gold mine. Gold mines were there in America. That's why Europeans were interested. Apart from that, there were various plantation activities also, in which the Americans were interested. In Africa, why they were interested? From Africa, they buy the slaves. And they, buying these slaves from Africa, they took them to America to work there in the planter's field as a slave. And from there, because when they make the laborers and make the slaves to work in these planters' field, like the tea plantation and other type of the plantation, coffee plantation, then when the slave work over there, they don't have to give them the wage. That's why more profit they can gain. Okay. So beta, till now, what I told you about the new lands discovered, why after the discovery of these land, why they discovered these land, why they were interested, after discovering, why they made it their colony. Okay. Now beta, come settlers. Who were said to be the settlers? These new immigrants, Europeans, when they goes to these lands and they get settled over there, they called as the settlers. Like, for example, Dutch in South Africa. Dutch get settled in South Africa. So, Dutch was said to be the new settlers of South Africa. British in Ireland. But in 10th standard, you have seen that UK is the combination of this Scotland, England, as well as the Ireland is at the side of it. It is a island at the side of British, which also came under the Britishers' rule. Okay, New Zealand and Australia. All these Britishers get settled in Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia. Firstly, they went there. They did their work and then later on they get settled. But in India, Europeans don't get settled. In Europe in America. Europeans also get settled in America. And because by these new immigrants get settled in these new land, the number of these immigrants increase and the number of native people keep on reducing. Because of this, the official language in these colonies, which colonies? America, North, South America, Australia, New Zealand, the official language is English now also. except one of the country, that is Canada. There the official language is French. Why it is French? Because most of the Canada was occupied by the French. That's why the official language was declared to be the French. Okay. Now beta, later on, from 18th century, more area of North, Central and South America was occupied by the Europeans. In South Africa, they, as I told you, they took up the slaves from there, and they made these slaves to work in the planters' field in America. Australia, New Zealand, all these were the places which were discovered, and later on the European get settled over there. As the result of all these things, the native people being pulled out into other areas, because when the land was occupied by these European people, they were more advanced in technology and other things. They called themselves to be the civilized one and called the native people to be uncivilized. This thing also I will tell you later on which terms and conditions, means what were the criteria they fixed for calling any of the person to be civilized, and why they called these native people to be uncivilized. Okay. So now you know what are colonies. Colonies is are the land which is occupied by another country for their economic benefit, which is exploited by another country for the economic benefit. Mother country is the country which exploit the colony for its benefit. Okay, like India was the colony, the mother country was Britain. And later on, when the mother country leave the country from their control, stop the exploitation, then it became declared to be the country. Like India became country after 1947 when it became independent. It also called to be country or state, when in a wider term we call country as a state. Okay. In 19th and the 20th century, people from Asian countries also migrated. Beta, till the 18th century, only European reached to these lands. But after 18th century, in 19th and the 20th century, we saw that Asian people also reached to these countries, started going to these new lands. And today, these European and Asians form majority in these lands. And number of natives are very less. Once they occupied majority of land, but still we see that the names of the many towns, places as well as the river in these countries of like North America, South America and Australia are on the name of the native people. Like the name of Ohio. Ohio is the name of the state in the America. In USA, Ohio is a place which is named after the native people name. Okay. Mississippi, it is also a local name. Mississippi is a river also in USA, and the valley area of that river is also known by the name of the Mississippi region. Okay. And Settle is a place in Washington. In Washington में एक जगह है Settle, जिसकी कैपिटल है ओलंपिया. Okay, so this is Settle is also the local name. This is all about the USA places name. Now come to the Canada. In Canada, there is a place, there is a province known by the name of the Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is also the native name, local name. Wollongong and Parramatta in Australia. All these are the Parramatta is the city in Australia. Wollongong is also a province in Australia. So these are also the native names. So from this we understand that the name of the places in USA, Canada, Australia are named after the local people, local inhabitants. But later on, when the European Asian reached these places, migrated to these people, they get settled over there and formed the majority over there. And because of all these things, the number of the native people reduced. So, and now you know in this chapter we are studying about the history of these people. From where we came to know about the history of these people. This thing we also discussed. Now beta, the question came to our mind, why they became settler. As I told you, the people from Europe and Asia, they came to these new land and get settled over there and came to be known as the settlers. But why they came? Why they reached to these land and got settled over there? You know, Britishers came to India, but they went back when India became independent. They did not become settlers over there. They don't settled over here. Why they settled in those lands? From 17th century, what happened in Europe? Persecution of Europeans by different sects of Christianity. Sects of Christianity. You know, in the previous chapter, in the three order as well as the changing cultural tradition, you studied that in Europe, the official religion is Christianity. But later on, the Protestant Reformation movement occurred in Christianity, which led to the emergence of new sect in Christianity, which is known as the Protestant group. So now the Christians are of two types. One is the Catholic Christians who follow the older Christianity, and new one is the Protestant Christian. So what happened from 17th century, the war started between two. Which type of a war? In Europe, some countries were occupied by, in some countries of Europe, the majority were that of the Catholic Christians. And in minority, the Protestant were there. So what majority started? Majority started persecution, killing the minority. Where there is the majority of the Catholic, they killed the Protestant, and wherever there is a majority of the Protestant Christians, they started persecutions of the Catholic. As a result of this, what these people started, the people who were there in minority, they left that place and they went to America to live a happy life over there. So one reason why these new settlers came there. Now second reason. What happened in 19th century? Migrants from France and Britain came to America. Who were these migrants? They were the young sons who would not inherit father's property. Because the father's property get inherited in Christianity also by the elder son. And younger sons were, as I told you in the previous chapter, was sent to the church to work there as the priest over there, to learn the priestly activity and to go there. The children, the younger sons who don't want that, they left the place. Those who have those who were eager to have their own land, to have their own property, they left the Europe and went to this new land of America and get settled over there. And there they can fulfill this dream of owning the land. So two reasons you understood. One is the persecution of the minority by the majority of the Christianity sect. Second reason, the dream, the eagerness to have their own property by the younger sons. Third reason, immigrant from Germany, Sweden and Italy who had lost their land to big farmers. You know, in England, the enclosure movement came. And what was that enclosure movement? In the enclosure movement, the big farmers fenced their land. Means they did the boundary of their land, and the small, the field of the small farmers who came in between, they were overtaken by these big farmers, and the small farmer became landless. So what happened when this thing happened in Germany, Sweden and Italy? These small farmers who lost their land to the big farmer, they leave the country and they went to the America, and there they wanted their own farm. They can own their own farms, and they settled over there. Now come to the case. This is all about the America, why the new settler came to America. Now when Australia was discovered, the new continent, then why the new settlers goes there? In Australia, most of the early settlers, जो starting में वहाँ पर लोग settle होने गए थे, Europeans, they were convicts who had been deported from England when, means अगर कोई criminal है, उसको जैसे हमारी country में काले पानी की सजा होती है, in a similar way in England, any criminal was there and if they were sent to jail, after releasing from the jail, they don't get the permission to live free in their own country. They were only released on the terms and condition that they must leave the land. मतलब उनको वहाँ वो देश छोड़कर जाना पड़ेगा, देश निकाला. तो उन कंडीशन में क्या है, they were deported to this new land of Australia, where they can live as a free man. So they get there, they were deported to Australia. There they can live a free life. There they can live a life as a free man. So in Australia, the early European settlers were these people. So now I hope through this video you know about what is the means. This is just the introduction of the chapter Displacing Indigenous People. Why the indigenous people were displaced. And here you also know we are talking about which indigenous people? The indigenous people of the new land. New land, the land of North America, South America, Australia, West Indies, New Zealand. Okay, and in the next video I will tell you through the map the locations of all these things so that you can understand all the things more nicely. Thank you all.